Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 2021 My Team Career Mode. This is episode number 113 today for the Hungarian Grand Prix in Season 7. If you guys did miss the previous episode at the British Grand Prix, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one, because some extra DRS zones at Silverstone really turned the British Grand Prix into a rather mental race. So many three-wide moments, not even involving myself, just AI. But we now come to the Hungarian Grand Prix, which is a sprint race round. But before we get to the racing action, as you can tell by the title and the thumbnail probably, there is some rather large news, because this is the halfway point of the season, so the contract negotiation period is open, and much like last season in Season 6, I have been blindsided by some massive driver transfers midway through the season. Now, this is nothing to do with the cosmetic mods and, the story we've tried to build around this series over 7 seasons. So in a moment, I'm going to try my best to kind of come up with a story, an evolution of what's gone on here in the middle of Season 7 to go with what the game has internally given and thrown at us in terms of mid-season transfers. Obviously, here you can see we're starting off with Pierre Gasly. Of course, we have re-signed him, and he will remain our teammate for the remainder of Season 7 to the end of this series. But the first major change in the driver lineups is Aston Martin. They have lost the services of George Russell. He only moved to the team at the start of this season, but they've had to steal away Mick Schumacher away from the Mercedes factory team because they've lost the services of George Russell. Of course, he only won a race, literally, 2 episodes ago at the Austrian Grand Prix. Quite an achievement in a lowly Aston Martin. He's taken that car to places it shouldn't be. And a team saw that, a certain team in red, because he has been signed by Scuderia Ferrari. Alongside Esteban Ocon, so Carlos Sainz has been booted out of the team. Finally, after so many seasons, the Ferrari lineup is all changed, because of course Leclerc left a long time ago now, back in, Season 4, wasn't it, or 5? And they had Sainz the whole time, but now it is a new pairing of Ocon and Russell. Ocon, he was in a championship fight last season with this team, but this season things haven't gone to plan, so they feel like by signing George Russell, he won a race in Aston Martin. What could he do in their car? Could he pull them out the depths of the bottom tier fight in the Constructors' Championship? But Aston Martin had to act quick, and they've stolen away Mick Schumacher from the factory Mercedes team. The teams that have remained the same are Ford Performance with Hamilton, Verstappen, Lotus Renault with Giovinazzi and Lundgaard, and McLaren with Lando Norris and Yuki Tsunoda. So all the same for those 3 teams. Of course, for sure, Ford and Lotus Renault, no need to change their pairings. I mean, Giovinazzi is still in the championship fight, Verstappen is in the championship fight, and Hamilton has started to pick up a little bit in places in that brand new Ford of his this season, so no reason to change. McLaren, although they've had a bit of a shaky last couple of episodes, in general, you got to say Tsunoda and Norris have been still very, very solid, and when the car works for them, the team works well and scores a lot of points. It's all the same also over at Williams Jaguar and Sauber BMW. Jack Aiken and Matsushita are still there. Guan Yu Zhou and Marcus Armstrong still at Williams Jaguar. Circling back to the Mercedes factory team, all change, and this is how. They've lost Mick Schumacher, so they looked for a new star driver, Felipe Drogovic, in fine form for Red Bull, but not maybe as consistent in that Red Bull. They lure him away with a fat contract. In retaliation to this, Red Bull Honda signed Mercedes' other driver that would have been alongside Drogovic, Valtteri Bottas. They sign him away in a deal that sees them go either way then, and because of that, just purely out of spite, Mercedes have signed Red Bull's other driver, and so have nicked both of them, and they've got the pairing of Drogovic and Ticktum, and so Red Bull Honda were left with no other option but to sign the free agent Carlos Sainz in his return to the Red Bull family. So that's quite a lot of change, maybe not as dramatic as last season when we had, one of the championship leaders lose his seat to a young gun, but equally still quite a large change for some major brands in the sport of Red Bull, Mercedes and Ferrari and Aston Martin there, and some interesting decision making from the AI team, I must say. Ferrari. I don't know how much this is all informed by their actual race results in the season just gone, or is it really just about acclaim level and potentially the cash that these AI teams do simulate and have in the background coding? I don't know, but again, a bit of a blindsided mid-season driver transfer fiasco, if you will. But in terms of ourselves, we're all stationary with myself and Pierre Gasly. You know, you've got the big players like Verstappen and Leclerc and Giovinazzi in the top 5 of the championship, all staying put. But you can see P6 now, George Russell is in the red of Ferrari, and Drogovic in P8 is in the Mercedes. And so we'll see how much of an effect drivers individually can make, because Mercedes and Ferrari have been in the bottom 3 of the championship all season. So now we'll really see, with maxed out cars, close stuff together, how much does a focused driver, how much does that difference really make to teams like Ferrari and Mercedes, who have been struggling this season, clearly with drivers that were out of focus or just not putting together the momentum they needed weekend to weekend. And what a race weekend to go into with all this change, because we've got a sprint race round around the Hungaroring. It's been a hot minute since we've had the Hungarian GP circuit on the calendar in this career mode series, and this should be a pretty spicy sprint race round for sure. It's going to be a tough one though, because it's been a while. I think the last time we were at Hungary, I don't know if we had a fully maxed out car, and for sure a lot of these AI drivers, they weren't this highly rated the last time they came to Hungary, so I have no clue what this is going to be about. But just like Silverstone, to add some spice to what is sometimes a bit of a dull race on the game even, we've got an extra DRS zone there, you can see, in Sector 1 to try and aid overtaking going up the hill to the blind left-hander. But it's not going to help us out too much if we can't do the business in the corners, and that's an issue. In the last corner, we're so slow versus the AI. They just pick up traction in the last sector as a whole, really, so much more than me. It's very difficult to match, especially now with maxed out cars, because they become like alien-like, you know, just, well, you can tell they're kind of AI. They're just pin perfect with it. And doesn't help also at the same time, I don't know where we picked it up, but we got some floor damage. I think it may have been the first sector when we rode the curb a bit too much on the exit of that right-hander down the hill before you get into Sector 2. And onto our second flying lap. It's a little bit rocky. Red first sector, but only by like a couple of thousandths. Then purple second sector. We're down to P8, so this needs to be a good final sector. 2 and a bit tenths gain, but still losing time, I feel, through the final bend. Ultimately, though, will get us up the order and solidify P7 then, just behind the same row as Gasly and Hamilton share. You've got on the front row, though, Yuki Tsunoda out of nowhere there, maybe reinvigorated with a confidence boost of not moving team from McLaren. He gets his, well, I think maybe his first pole position in the series as a whole. Giovinazzi on the front row, Verstappen, and then Ocon in P4 then. So it's not the new signing for Ferrari that gets the boost. Russell's down in P14, maybe struggling to get to grips with the car in P14, but Ocon maybe sensing some danger of a new driver coming in to challenge his kind of, you know, top #1 driver spot, I guess, at the Scuderia, does the business and goes up to P4 then. Drogovic drags the Mercedes, also you can see there, up to P11, so showing that really very much so maybe Bottas and Schumacher weren't doing the business for Mercedes, because Drogovic is right behind Bottas. And finally, clearly Aston Martin definitely being hurt by losing Russell as they're down the order, and they don't have George to climb their car up. And Porsche, a surprising kind of quieter qualifying for them. Leclerc down in P9. I would have thought it would have suited this kind of circuit, their car and the chassis, but you know, it's a sprint round, so you never know. Quite a lot of aggression, I think, from every driver, so we'll see what everyone can do on Sunday. Let's go to the grid for the sprint race at Hungary.
Welcome to Budapest once again for another round of the Formula One World Championship. Historically, a good race for first victories, with Button, Hill, Alonso and Heikki Kovalainen all reaching the top step of the podium for the first time here. Located 12 miles northeast of the Hungarian capital Budapest, the 14 corners of the Hungaroring are steeped in history and prestige. Overtaking has always been difficult on this technical 2.7-mile circuit, but the last few years in particular have turned up some exceptional races. Let's hope we're in for another one here today. Anthony Davidson joins me again for the race today. Can I get your take on Haas? What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Yuki Tsunoda lines up on pole position, edging out Antonio Giovinazzi, who'll start from P2. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Ocon, Hamilton, Pierre Gasly, the owner driver, Norris, Leclerc, Bottas, and Felipe Drugovich. Joe, Sainz, Max Verstappen, they'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty, and Russell, Stroll, Lundgaard, Daniel Ticktum, and Marcus Armstrong. Aitken, Ireland, Matsushita, and Mick Schumacher. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head to trackside for today's race.
Right, so after a decent qualifying then for Max Verstappen, he's been dealt with an engine penalty, it would seem, from P3 to P13. He goes with a 10th place there, so it's Hamilton elevated up onto the second row then, you know. So, yeah, he's had a few glimmers of actually being better, and maybe the summer break's done him some good here, maybe. And now that means we line up alongside our teammate Pierre Gasly in a race after the British Grand Prix, where myself and him are only separated by 1 point in the championship, halfway of the season remaining though, so it it's almost like it's reset back to square one, and we go again then. Of course, other drivers in it, you know, Giovinazzi, Verstappen, Leclerc, not too far off, and they've all been very consistent, especially Verstappen, yet to win a race, and he's still there right in the top three. And even, you know, people like Russell, and I would have said Drugovich, are still maybe in it mathematically, you know, still a chance. But for us, as always in this career mode series, you know, I just take it race by race, really, until you get to the last couple of rounds, and really, honestly, more so looking to build on the momentum we got from winning our home race and our first ever race this season at the British Grand Prix last time out, alongside the man who's closest to us in the championship. So let's try and hope we can get the jump early on. It's going to be a pretty thick and fast sprint race though here around the Hungaroring. 18 laps of this tricky circuit coming up as we go to 5 red lights for the second half of this season. We're underway, lights are out. It's a slow start for Giovinazzi. It's a good one for the likes of Hamilton and Esteban Ocon, who's up into P2. Tsunoda still leads into turn 1. We're trying to get the jump on Gasly. Initially, I thought we actually got the exit on him, but then as we climbed up the gears in the run to turn 1, Gasly was able to pull back through, and now we're side by side as we go down the hill to the long left-hander. We're on the inside line, though. We're so close to making some contact there, as it's nearly tyre banging for myself and Gasly, and this is getting uber close. We have to back out of it, though, ultimately, because I don't want to make some contact, and instead we settle down for P6, then where we started this race. We're looking behind to just make sure we don't fall foul of Lando Norris, who's right up our gearbox at the moment, followed by Carlos Sainz in a sandwich there with his new teammate Valtteri Bottas. Leclerc, the filling in the middle, still in the Porsche factory team, but it's Tsunoda that leads the way, showing that maybe a confidence boost for a driver not moving teams is what you need there. Ocon though, P2, what a response from Ocon, seeing Russell enter his team. And for us right now, 3 laps have gone by. We've been stuck behind Gasly, but for no more. It's a massive lunge down the inside, and we kind of almost catch Pierre napping a little bit in sector 3. Not too much happening between laps 1 and 4 there, kind of all stationary. Of course, Hungary is known as Monaco without the barriers, and even with that extra DRS zone activated on lap 3, it was tough times catching up to Gasly. We really had to make just that ballsy move down the inside and get a move on here, because Gasly seems to be struggling to keep up with Giovinazzi, as we want to try and build obviously on our championship lead and chase after the pack of Giovinazzi. Hamilton in P3, who did get ahead of Giovinazzi of course at the start and is maintaining a podium position right now. Ocon though still P2. Tsunoda looking comfortable, but to be fair, Ocon is giving some pressure within 1 second, as well as Hamilton then and Giovinazzi. So those 4 will be in a bit of a DRS train, and they'll be kind of almost slowing each other up in dirty air. And that's what's happening. Myself and Gasly, we're both now within 1 second of the car ahead, and Ocon's gone off! Oh, Hamilton's off! And we narrowly miss making some race-ending contact with the Ford driver, who almost took out our teammate Gasly and has taken out his teammate Max Verstappen. It's an absolute implosion for Ford Performance GP. Hamilton and Verstappen made contact. Verstappen is out of this race due to his teammate, and his teammate only was in that position because he made contact with Ocon, but that is the race-ending contact there. Hamilton actually continues on just with front wing damage, but look how bloody close that was to me. If he was going any quicker, or I couldn't move that inch right, I could have been out of this Grand Prix, or just at least T-boned with side pod damage again in a race like in Austria. And so with that, we've got a full-course safety car. We're going to come in. I believe Gasly is as well. I mean, everyone's going to have to come in because this is such an awkward timing. This is the sort of time we would have made maybe the pit stop, you know, maybe the earliest for the pit stop window. So everyone's in, and this is going to be an unfortunate double stack for Pierre Gasly. But one of our championship contenders then, Verstappen, ever the consistent man. This is the first time he's not going to finish like in the top 5 for the whole season maybe, or absolutely ages, because he's been taken out by his teammate Lewis Hamilton. How controversial is that? Hamilton and Verstappen make contact, but in a different world, it's as teammates in the Ford Performance GP team. So now we're all bunched up together and getting ready for this safety car restart. We've climbed up to P3 then, of course, with Hamilton being down the order and Ocon with the front wing change in that whole situation. So P3 behind Giovinazzi, Tsunoda, Leclerc a little bit down the order now, a couple of places back. Leclerc is now the one right behind me. But on this restart then, it's a really good exit, and we may have a great run on Giovinazzi here. No DRS, just pure slipstream, and we're on the grass a little bit as Giovinazzi gives us a good old squeeze. No love lost between two former championship rivals from last season. Snap of oversteer though on the exit at turn 1. The tyre's a bit cold, and that's allowed Lando Norris to come through. Where does he come from? He's overtaken Leclerc, and now he's going for a move on me. We're now side by side with our fellow countrymen. We've got Leclerc looking for a little move on the outside, potentially a bit cheeky there from the man from Monaco, but we are going to maintain P3 for now. But we've lost some speed, and we've lost a bit of composure because we're wide there. Understeer now. Oh God. The McLaren really with a large defence on the inside there. Went a bit deep, I feel Lando did, and squeezed me wide. And we had either going over the curb fully and breaking a bit of our floor, hitting the McLaren, or taking the escape road we did. So in the end of it, at the end of lap 9, we're going to be down in P5 then. So that's really not gone to plan. I tried to overtake Giovinazzi for P2, lost out with the traction, and was side by side with P3 Norris now, and that in turn obviously then turned into that mistake and just kind of avoiding action really. Not even a mistake really from us, it was just more avoiding the McLaren into the chicane. A bit of a harsh defence from Lando, I feel, in the McLaren. So we're down to P5 now because Leclerc took advantage of that obviously slow across the sleeping policeman run-off bits, and so now we're going to have to try and reconvene, recompose a little bit, and we have a little half look on the inside there, but in the end of it, really have to step out of it, because if I had committed to that, that would have just been a horrendous crash into Leclerc. But this is frustrating, this circuit, even with the extra DRS zone here, down this hill, up the crest to the left-hander, really still doesn't even help out, because we close up to Leclerc, but we're unable to really make a move. So this really is Monaco, just based in Hungary, because we've hardly seen that much action really from even the AI. You know, Giovinazzi really applying quite a large amount of pressure on Tsunoda, but the McLaren driver is just standing firm in P1, has enough in his tank to maintain ahead. You know, it's a bit of a compromise here at Hungary. You run quite a lot of wing with the kind of downforce nature of the circuit, and so that kind of means that even with the extra DRS zone, all of the DRS zones added up, it's just not enough sometimes for cars to overtake around here. And Giovinazzi, he's clearly got the pace, but he's just stuck behind the McLaren, but both of them in a world of their own. Meanwhile, Norris backing Leclerc into me, and you can see a bit of defensive moving there from the Brit versus Leclerc, and that's allowing myself, Sainz, Ocon and Gasly to close up. Gasly looking racy now as he's looking, and he has overtaken Ocon and Carlos Sainz as we now go for the lunge once again at turn 1 on Leclerc. This time it works out for us. We're alongside him. We've got the run now off turn 1. DRS activated on the inside. It's going to be oh so close as we try and jockey for position. Give him enough room to work with on the inside there. But we are up into P4. Gasly now right on his tail. And he's going to send it down the inside. It's a fantastic move from Pierre Gasly. He's going to finish it off on the outside. Will he up the hill? It's going to be very fine though. Leclerc actually has some great traction in that Porsche Works team. But no, into the chicane. They're still battling. They're still going on. And then as we look through, oh, Gasly's forced him off wide. Gasly with the elbows out. He's not taking any rubbish, it would seem, today. Maybe frustrated with how that double stack went in the first pit stop and desperate to claw his way up there. Got very aggressive with Leclerc, but he's not got a bit of pace here, it would seem, through those slower corners in Sector 3. And by the time we get to lap 16, 3 laps to go. Still Tsunoda, Giovinazzi. We're in P4, being caught by Ocon though. Gasly's back down to P7, and Ocon absolutely sends it at the same corner that I sent it on Gasly. So I kind of saw it coming in my mirrors and gave him some room, because I thought that would have been an accident otherwise, in the same fashion that Gasly gave me the room to work with on lap 4, was it? But Ocon unable to actually make the move stick like myself, but he's going to have a great run, and I've got no DRS off Lando Norris now. He's dropped us, the McLaren has, as both McLarens have great pace, it would seem. So now I'm left defending and squeezing Ocon to the inside there. It gets tantalisingly close as the Frenchman actually comes back at us and pushes out the elbows. Can we get down the inside like we did with Leclerc? No! No, we can't! It's a disaster for us. We've tried to go down the inside of Ocon, but instead we've chopped off our front wing. 1.5 laps remaining. Not enough time for a pit stop in this sprint race, so we're going to have to hobble along, but Gasly trying to force the move. But we're going to come back with a desperate dive bomb to maintain the position, but with half a front wing, we go wide then up the hill. Bottas is through. Gasly side by side. We lock up, and Gasly, oh no, he's made contact with Valtteri Bottas, and he's going to be out of the Grand Prix, but taking Bottas and me with him. The kettle has well and truly boiled over. Finally, it's happened. It's taken half a season, but it's absolute civil war here between myself and Pierre Gasly. Bit of contact it was I actually made with that dive bomb. We then go for the defense, but Gasly has other ideas, but then he sends it far too much. The red mist descended for him in the cockpit. He was just too desperate to overtake the Red Bull that he lost the position to whilst overtaking me, and instead took himself out as the rear tyre sheared off. He takes Bottas out of the race, and I was left as a bystander. We actually did make contact with him with that dive bomb, so that was a bit poor from us. And then here, I lock up, so I'm going straight on anyway, but my race is over anyway with the front wing damage. But then we just get held up by the crash that Gasly and Bottas were having. So it's not exactly myself and Gasly making contact with each other that takes him out of the race and me out of it. But at the same time, I think you can see from both sides the desperation to beat each other just kind of came to a head and didn't make the situation any better. That desperate dive bomb I made just up the hill, then Gasly came back to try and make the double overtake work on me and Bottas, and you know, both those incidents basically made the situation worse and have ended up with us both out of the Hungarian GP sprint race.
It's a performance to be proud of today from our Hungarian Grand Prix winners. And talk to me, what do you think it was that sealed the win for them?
Well, they played the safety car to absolute perfection. There are so many factors to worry about once the race is neutralised. I mean, do you pit for fresh rubber? Do you have the space behind you? How much fuel can you save? If you answer all of those questions correctly, you'll have a good chance. And that's exactly what happened today.
And look at that, they're making their way out onto the podium now. Great race from the McLaren team, and I'm really happy to see them there on the top step of the podium.
Yuki Tsunoda then goes on to take from pole to the win here at Hungary, showing that even with the sprint round and extra DRS, it is very difficult to overtake. And Tsunoda, confidence boost for staying at McLaren and not being involved in that mid-season fiasco. Giovinazzi, second place, very strong for him in a race where Verstappen is out, I was out, Gasly was out. It was a big day for Giovinazzi and even Leclerc, I guess, in P5 to score some points there. And so it means in the championship, somehow I actually still lead the way then with 1 point to Gasly. But you can see now the gap is very much closed up with Leclerc, Giovinazzi. Verstappen, though, one of the big losers, really, in terms of he loses third place and goes down to P5 because Leclerc and Giovinazzi were a bit closer to him than all three of them were to myself and Gasly. So it's still very much game on, but has the game just changed? Has the, the way we go racing with each other as a team, as teammates, changed from this race? Because although we didn't take each other out, so it wasn't a complete civil war, I feel like we both made decisions that were motivated by wanting to beat each other, and in turn just made our individual races worse at a time where they're already kind of unraveling a little bit, with my front wing damage having already been done before that whole debacle. And Gasly anyway didn't have that much pace in that race and was behind a lot of his rivals in the championship. A debrief to be had, but it's come through. The drama has come through. Myself and Gasly, the kettle's boiled over a little bit, and what a chaotic race in already an episode that was a bit chaotic from the driver transfers alone, but that sprint round at Hungary really did deliver right to the end with some massive drama. Guys, if you did enjoy the video, hit the like button, let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.